Today's talk is titled You and a You, to be delivered by Jan Musarra. Jan is a 12-year member of UUCC, but in truth, she has been a member all her life. She walked in one day to the Vets Hall and heard the Reverend Rod Richards speak, and has been a UUer ever since. Jan?
It's okay. Got it. There, no. Oh, I'm as big as you guys. Okay. Today's talk is a composite of related pieces. I used a sermon by Reverend Christopher Buse, the gentleman who wrote that Prayer of St. Francis version, another by Reverend Rebecca F. Benner, and then intersperse those with thoughts of my own. I'll try to keep the attributions clear. Both Reverend Buse and Reverend Benner delivered these sermons in 2015, so they're 10 years old. Still, however, relatable. Buse is the minister of Tennessee Valley Unitarian Universalist Church in Knoxville, Tennessee. He studied for the ministry at a Quaker seminary, Earlham School of Religion, and continues to find a lot of common ground between the Unitarian Universalism and Quaker Universalist tradition. Chris is a Francophile who enjoys French films and television shows. His adult children, Christopher and Sally, have both studied and worked in France with obligatory parent visits, of course. He has enjoyed his time serving as visiting minister with the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Paris, where he gave himself plenty of time to be a flaneur and meet with folks in cafes. Reverend Benner is a third-generation UUer, ordained in 1999. She left active professional ministry to be a full-time at-home parent to her 3 sons. She still leads a covenant group and occasionally plays trombone at her church in Fairfax, Virginia. Although I'm one of, she says, this is me. Although I'm one of the many who discovered UUism late in life, I've always been one at heart. Just didn't know what to call it. So the first part of this talk is Christopher Buse. In the Unitarian Universalist Church, we find inspiration from many different sources. The inspiration for today's sermon comes from a joke. You may have heard it. Question: what's the difference between cats and dogs? No takers? Dogs look at people and say, they feed us, they give us shelter, they take care of our every need. They must be gods. Cats look at people and say, they feed us, they give us shelter, they take care of our every need. We must be gods. I'm not sure if this joke gives us any real insight into the way that cats and dogs think. However, it does remind us of a comment that Thomas Starr King made about Unitarian Universalists. Until 1961, the two were different denominations. In that year, the American Unitarian Association merged with the Universalist Church of America to form the Unitarian Universalist Association, UUA. However, in the 19th century, Thomas Starr King was asked to describe the differences between these two denominations. He replied, he's not the cat and the dog, but Universalists believe that God is too good to damn them to hell forever. Unitarians believe that they are too good to be damned. So we might say that the Unitarians are cats and the Universalists are dogs. Many of us who came into the movement after 1961 think of ourselves as UUs. We do not identify with one tradition, but both. This is Buse, am one such person. However, Unitarians and Universalists did bring two distinct theologies into the movement. In Unitarian churches, the emphasis was on worth and dignity of every person and tolerance for differences, whereas the Universalists focused on the text, God is love, and placed emphasis on the ways that human personality blossoms in the larger sustaining love of human community and to the divine. There's value in both traditions. Cats seem to have a strong sense of their own worth and dignity. They are affectionate, but often on their own terms, choosing the place and the moment for any contact with the human members of a household. A cat's attitude toward a dog is usually one of tolerance. There's a live and let live philosophy, but no great warmth or demonstrative affection. Cats are often independent and self-sufficient. We do not claim to know their religious beliefs, but it's possible they're Unitarians. Dogs, on the other hand, are very demonstrative with affection. They run to greet us at the door, they wag their tails, bark, jump up and down, drive us nuts. Around dogs, we get the feeling that the meaning of life is to love and be loved, to express our feelings. So let others know that we are glad to see them, that we missed them while they were gone, to be an open book. Whereas a cat will curl up in a corner for some silent, solitary retreat, a dog wants to be in the thick of things, surrounded by people and love. We don't claim to know a dog's religious beliefs, but it could be he or she is a universalist. To insert what might at first sound like a random comparison and to stretch the metaphor to the max, in Buddhism, there exists a tension between Theravada and Mahayana schools of thought. In the Theravada school, enlightenment is achieved through silent retreat, self-contained meditation. The goal is enlightenment, and no one can achieve this goal for you. You must achieve it for yourself. No god or gods can help you do this. You must do it on your own. Radical self-reliance is the path to the goal of individual salvation. Once you reach enlightenment or nirvana, you do not return to help others get there. Everyone must get to enlightenment through his or her own efforts. Now, the Mahayana school of Buddhism places special emphasis on compassion. According to Mahayanists, compassion is more important than wisdom or enlightenment. Or perhaps it's better to say that compassion is the necessary fruit of enlightenment, and without it, enlightenment has little value. Here, the goal is to return from that state into the real world. Here, the goal is also to reach enlightenment or nirvana. However, once you achieve it, the idea is to return into the real world in order to guide others to the place you've discovered. The person who returns to serve others is revered as a bodhisattva. Did I say that right? Bodhisattva, or what folks in the West might call a saint. Houston Smith, a renowned scholar of religious studies, describes the difference between these two schools of thought by quoting poetry. He says, the Mahayana school of thought can be summarized in the words, he findeth not who seeks his own. She findeth not who seeks her own. The soul is lost, that's saved alone. But the Theravada school can be summarized, no one saves us but ourselves. No one can and no one may. We ourselves must tread the path. Buddhas only show the way. It appears cats belong to the Theravada school and dogs to the Mahayana school. Of course, this tension between self-reliance and compassion for others is found in many other aspects of life. In some ways, the Theravada school is the Republican Party of Buddhism. The focus is on self-help, working for personal advancement, and not looking for handouts, but opportunities to move up in the world. The Mahayana school might be called the Democratic Party of Buddhism. The ideal is, once you've made it in the world, to help others move on up as well. Personal salvation is not enough. You got to help others make it also. We see this similar dichotomy in Unitarian Universalism. Unitarians believe human beings are truly created in the image of the divine. In other words, human beings are, at heart, good and can, in fact, live up to God's expectations for them, much like the punchline of the joke when the cat says, we must be gods. The doctrine for the original Universalists, on the other hand, was that of salvation. They believed that God is so good, that God's love for humanity was so great, that every person in the end will be saved. and they believed there was no such thing as hell. That was a radical belief 200 years ago. However, both Unitarian and Universalism shared one central calling: to create a sacred kingdom here on earth by working for greater peace and justice. They both also were non-creedal faiths. Nobody had to sign a statement of belief when they had joined either church. And after being under consideration for over 100 years, the Unitarian and the Universalist disciplines joined together in 1961. And we have changed from then, a religious tradition that was clearly and explicitly Christian, to one that embraces the pluralism we find in the world and within our own congregation. Now, this is me talking. In the recent UU World magazine, I enjoyed reading the last page where they usually insert a faith journey feature. Did anyone here read that? It was in the very last magazine. This one was entitled, "A Child's Question Led Me to Unitarian Universalism." I'll quote the first paragraph as told by the author, Paula Gribble. She says, "I began attending a Unitarian Universalist church in 1997 in East Lansing, Michigan. I was a single mom, lived with my daughter, my best friend, and her daughter. Our girls had a lot of questions. Questions we would answer with, well, some people believe, and other people believe. One day, very frustrated, my friend's daughter yelled, 'I don't care what some people believe. What do we believe?' I was so taken aback, but she was so right." It's much easier, this is me, I think, to define ourselves, we UUs, by enumerating the things we don't believe, as Margot did 2 weeks ago. It was a great service, great talk. And when she read Reverend Schwartz's sermon, she read, "I don't believe in the cross, I don't believe in the resurrection." The Reverend Rebecca F. Benner reminded us of a concept the Unitarian minister Theodore Parker stated in his sermon, "The Transient and Permanent Christianity." It is that our 7 principles and our 6 sources, and now our 6 values, command that we are to discover and love the divine, the sacred, with all our mind, heart, and soul. That we are able to find that which calls us beyond ourselves, that which reminds us we have the ability to serve truth and goodness wherever it is found. The second part of that is that we are to love our neighbors as thyself, which determines how we want to act in this world, with justice and compassion, with an awareness of our connection to all those around us. The third part, according to Benner, might be that the process of religion is ongoing. There's always more truth to be found. Our faith is never finished. Our spiritual journeys are our own. Each of us has the freedom to make his or her particular journey in his or her particular way. That does not mean that we can believe whatever we want, but within the bounds of honesty and integrity, within the bounds of loving that which is ultimate and loving our neighbor, there is a tremendous amount of room for religious exploration and learning, for diversity of belief and diversity of practice. Reverend Benner elucidates. There are days, she says, when I want to believe in a personal God who will enter my life and take care of me. But Unitarian Universalism challenges me to be honest with myself and with you, my religious community. I must acknowledge that as much as I sometimes want this belief, it is not a part of my faith or my experience. Reverend Buse tells us, for many, there's a strict dichotomy between these ways of looking at the world. It is self-reliance versus compassion. It is either or instead of both and. There's something to be said for self-reliance and individual autonomy. As the Sufi mystics teach us, we all need times alone, for only when a glass of water is taken out of a raging ocean can it be still. And we all need those moments of stillness and solitude. However, we also need to love and be loved, to express ourselves, to be demonstrative about how we feel. These are human needs and perhaps deeper than human. Perhaps cats and dogs and all creatures of the earth and sky feel those needs too. When the Unitarians and Universalists merged in 1961, it formed a combination of two different kinds of creatures. Occasionally, if you go to denominational gatherings, you'll find someone who laments the merger, someone who deeply regrets the day it happened. There are folks who trace all the source of all evil in the world to the decision to merge. But if you join this movement after the merger, you might have always thought of yourself as a you. At any rate, it is just possible that we need both cats and dogs in the world, that we need Unitarians and Universalists, Theravada and Mahayana Buddhists, even Republicans and Democrats. In order to be whole and complete persons, we need to cultivate our self-reliance and our ability to give and receive love, our humility and our pride, our times of solitude and our times of compassion. The prophet Isaiah envisioned a day when the lion and the lamb would lie down together. To which Woody Allen commented, "The lion and lamb may lie down together, but the lamb won't get much sleep." Cats and dogs do often lie down together, seeking in their own unique way to accommodate other creatures that are not exactly like them. So perhaps there is hope for peace, peace in the world, peace between the Unitarians and the Universalists, the Theravada and the Mahayana, Republicans and Democrats, and even cats and dogs. Thank you.